For someone who spends most of their days talking, did you know that there are things I'm not allowed to say? And as a New Yorker who's often obnoxious and unfiltered, that's really difficult to do. But it's not just me, it's thousands of other realtors also. Not things we shouldn't say, there are things we're flat out not allowed to say that could spell disaster for me and for my clients. Join me. Hello friends, it's Bill Warrell, your Bradenton and Sarasota Realtor, and yes, there really are topics I'm not allowed to talk about with my clients. Today my plan is to discuss what those topics are, why we're not allowed to talk about them, how it may affect buyers and sellers, and how I often talk about them anyway. In 1968, as part of the landmark Civil Rights Act, Congress enacted the Fair Housing Act. The act was passed just 1 week after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination and aimed to correct decades of discriminatory housing practices. When first enacted, the Fair Housing Act prohibited discrimination based on race, national origin, religion, and sex. In 1988, expansion was passed to include disability and family status. And one of the prohibited practices was called redlining. This term came about by the use of actual red lines companies would draw on maps indicating where they would and wouldn't do business. In these scenarios, red areas were considered risky and were often predominantly black neighborhoods. And while you may have a picture in your head of the types of individuals creating these maps, they were actually created by the government itself for use in the government's homeowners loan corporation. One of the other prohibited practices is what's called steering. Steering is the illegal practice of influencing a buyer's choice of housing based on a protected characteristic, such as race, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and family status. Let's take a look at some of those examples. Limiting property options. This is where an agent only shows properties in neighborhoods that are predominantly populated by people of the client's same race or ethnicity, while disregarding listings in other areas that might meet their objective criteria. Providing unequal information. This is where an agent points out a white home buyer to resources about good schools in a specific district, but fails to mention similar resources for minority home buyers with the same criteria. A real estate agent cannot speak about the makeup of a particular neighborhood as it relates to its people. That's because providing an opinion or information on a community's residents can be discriminatory. Now, I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat this. Having these conversations can open us up to liability. However, not having these conversations can open us up to unhappy or resentful clients. Believe it or not, buyers and sellers don't like surprises, and by me not being able to have open and honest conversation with them puts me in a compromising position. So, how do I go about providing answers for my clients while not wading through the murky waters of breaking any laws? Actually, it's quite easy. First, I gather in-depth criteria from my clients about their needs, goals, wants, and desires. Doing so means that I can fully focus on what my client wants, and there is no need to inject my assumptions. I once had a buyer who indicated that their faith was extremely important to their family and their young children were very involved in youth activities with their church. This led to further questions, and I asked if the distance between their church and the home was important, to which she responded, "Yes, I almost forgot to mention that we would like to live within 5 miles of our church." Now, if I had made an assumption, I could have been in violation, but because it was discussed as an item of importance by my client, I was in the clear. Secondly, while opinions can be considered discriminatory, facts are not. I'm always quick to provide and cite resources for clients in responses to their questions. These include crime mapping to see actual neighborhood crime rates, independent school grading sites that can provide insights as to a school district's reputation, and local census reports that provide information on other demographics that are protected by the Fair Housing Act. And third, we always drive through potential neighborhoods so that buyers can form their own opinions. Driving down the street midday and seeing no cars in the driveway could indicate that many people are out of the house and it could be a working class neighborhood. Seeing bikes and kids' toys in the yard can indicate that the area is populated by a lot of families. Seeing boats, jet skis, or high-end vehicles could indicate that it's an upper-class neighborhood. And seeing a couch and refrigerator on the front lawn could indicate that you've driven too far and now you're in Kentucky or West Virginia. Relax, I'm just kidding. The conflicting issue here is that while the important legislation is meant to reduce discriminatory action, Agents are also bound by fiduciary responsibility for their client. Now, if you found this information helpful, insightful, or just plain disliked it, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.